Hi, my name's Juliet, and today I'm going to show you how to make a very simple audio waveform promotional video using your audiobook sample in Shotcut. The graphics I've created are deliberately basic so that you can see what I'm doing, and this is intended to be something you can do even if you have very little knowledge of video editing. Even so, I'd recommend that you watch my first Shotcut video before proceeding with this one. I'll put the actual video at the end so you can see the effects more clearly. I've set up my file for a YouTube style video, and you can see I have two video tracks set up and not a video and an audio track, even though I have an audio track in my playlist. This is because there is no video attached to a pure audio track, so you can't use a video filter with it, unless it's in a video track, but more on that later. I have a plain image for the V1 track. I would suggest that you create your image outside of Shotcut, rather than putting the elements together within the application. This will make your video creation much easier. As you can see, when I drag the image onto the timeline, it comes in at a standard number of seconds. I think the default is 5, but I've changed mine to 10. I'm going to drag the audio track onto the V2 track. As you can see, the audio track is much longer, so to adjust the background image to the full length, just click on it and hover over the edge until you get the arrow appear. Then drag it out. You may need to adjust the slider to make this more manageable. Now, many adjustments in Shotcut are made by adding what are called filters. To add one, you have to have the track you want it added to selected. So click onto the V2 track, then click on the filter tab below the playlist, and then the plus symbol. You'll see there's a list for favourites, video and audio. We need video and the filter that's called Audio Waveform Visualization. Once that's selected, you get the default settings box appear in the panel. Some of the things I'm going to show you here are available in other video filters. On the video display, you'll see there is a frame that has appeared, filling the width of the screen. You may also just about be able to see a circle in the middle at the bottom. That's what you use to move the frame. It's that far down the screen because it's only showing the top of the waveform. You could leave it there if you wanted, but it's not very noticeable. You can use the corner resizing squares to adjust the waveform down to the size you want it. You can do this on the default panel too, but it's usually easier to do on the screen. As you can see, the default settings give you a very simple line format for the waveform. The first thing I want to do is change the colour. I want it to match the orange around the image. To do that, click on the colour bar to get the colour palette, and then pick Screen Colour. Then it's simply a case of clicking on the colour you want, and it will appear in the colour block, and press OK. There are 3 other main settings: changing the thickness of the line, filling in the background, and window, which makes the track look more like it does in something like Audacity. You can play around with these settings until you get a format that's pleasing to you. You will probably also want to add some text, and that involves using another filter. So click onto the background track, filter, plus, and select the Text Simple filter. You'll see another frame appear on the screen. The default automatically gives you an outline around the text, so I'm going to reduce the thickness down to 0. And I'm going to use the same orange for the text. As you can see, it works exactly the same way as for the waveform. You can change the font as well, but I'm not going to worry about that here. To change the text, type what you want into the box. If it's longer than one line, it's best to use line returns to format it properly. The text will automatically be centered, but you can choose different alignment if you wish. Then adjust the frame in the same way as you did with the waveform. And that's it. All you need to do is export the file. But what's that you say? You don't want horizontal format? you want to use this on TikTok or Reels or Shorts. If you've watched the basics video, you'll remember that you can choose video mode at startup. So if that's your aim, you'd start off with a vertical format. But you can also change that from within the created file by going into Settings, Video Mode. But the first time you do this, it will be a little more complicated. The main list doesn't contain any vertical formats, but if you look at non-broadcast, you can see two. But the frames per second aren't standard video settings for most uses. Beneath that, you have custom. You'll see I already have a vertical format at 25 frames per second set up. To have this, you will have to add one, but it's really easy. Put in a name, put in the resolution and aspect ratio, make sure you get the figures around the right way, and your frames per second. Click OK, and you're done. When you choose the format, your display changes. And, as you can see, everything I did before is now screwed up. Luckily, here's a vertical format background that I made earlier. All I have to do is replace it. Now I can move the waveform to where I want it and recreate the text, because that was a filter attached to the previous background. And there we have the same thing in vertical. Here's the whole sample with the different formats shown with their settings.
Response. She approaches the pan I have been tending on the stove, takes the wooden spoon in her hand, and stirs the contents in a slow figure-of-8 motion.
That's some garlicky gunk you've got. Is it for those?
She reaches a hand out for one of my darts. My algorithms swing again and take over.
Click, click, click.
They determine fight mode. I nip her finger. This feels like an excessive reaction, but I cannot help myself.
Ouch, that hurt.
She drops the spoon back into the pan and rubs at her finger. There is no blood.
I suppose I should have asked.
She turns back and sniffs at the pan, changing the tone of the conversation so quickly that it sets me at odds with my actions.
Thanks for watching, and if you've subscribed, I'll see you again next time.